Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us in today's video. My name is Nicole with morningchores.com, and today I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on how to prep the garden for spring planting. It is mid-April as I'm filming this, and planting is right around the corner. Where I live, I usually like to plant by the second week of May. That's the ideal time. Of course, you always want to check your last frost date to make sure that you're avoiding that. But this is usually the time of year that I begin prepping the garden so that I'm not saving it for the last minute. So I'm just going to go over some tips that I've kind of learned over the years. Hopefully it'll make your experience a little bit easier and run a little bit more smoothly. The first tip I have for today's video is to get started early with the prepping. Don't save it all for the last minute. There have been years where unfortunately I've had to prep the garden at the same time that I plant, and it can be done. It just puts a lot more work on your shoulders, and you have to work pretty quickly to get everything done. And I understand that this is all dependent on the weather. So there have been years where I literally cannot get into the garden until the end of April, beginning of May. Now this year has been a little bit different. We've already had 80-degree weather. So I've actually been able to get in the garden as early as March and start doing things. So I do find that getting started early makes a huge difference. Also tackling a little bit at a time. So once I can get in the garden, so for example, this year I was able to get in and start doing things by the end of March. I try to just do a little bit each week. That way I'm not, again, saving it all for the last minute. I'm not taking on too much. It just makes it so much more manageable when I take little just micro bites of prep work out of the garden so that I'm not having to do so much during planting. So just doing a little bit, this week. Maybe this week you just evaluate what you need done, and maybe the next week you rip out any old plants or do some weeding, and then maybe do some tilling the next week. Just take little micro goals each week so that you're working towards and working up to spring planting. The second tip I have for you is evaluate what needs done. Take an evaluation, take inventory of the supplies you need. What needs done to the garden before you start planting? This could be as simple as making a supply list. Do I need soil this year? Do I need mulch? Are my garden tools all in working order? Do I need to check the fence and see if the fence around the garden needs repair? Taking inventory gives you direction so that you kind of know what needs done. You know if you need to spend any money on anything. It just helps you tackle the work more easily and more efficiently. The third tip I have for today is rip out old plants, or you may need to reevaluate where you grow things. I had to do this year. I originally had planted an elderberry plant in my main garden space. It was supposed to be kind of an experiment just to see if I could grow it. Well, it ended up taking over the garden, and it's taking up valuable garden space that I could use to grow food to fill my family's bellies. Now, please don't mistake me. Elderberry is a very valuable plant, and I ended up planting more elderberry plants outside of my main garden space, and those are well established now. So now I feel comfortable ripping out this plant. I'm actually going to try to transplant it into another space, so hopefully it will still grow. But, you may have to just reconsider. Maybe, you need to put more garden spaces closer to the house or add on to your garden. Or maybe, like in my case, you planted something and it just doesn't suit that space anymore, and you need to relocate that plant or just rip it out for good. So kind of evaluating your spaces and figuring out how to utilize those spaces to the best of their ability and just for efficiency purposes. Tip number 4 in preparing the garden for planting is prepping the soil. What do you need to do to get that soil ready to receive the plants that you're going to plant in that garden space? So this might be something like getting your soil tested. You can do this through some websites. You can also do it through your extension office, through your county. There's all kinds of different ways you can test your soil. Some farm stores will also do soil testing. I actually have not had this particular garden space tested. I probably should, because it does really help you understand where your soil is lacking, but it is a really good option. Another thing you may need to do is add things to your soil. So you might need to add more soil, you might need to add compost. I like to use wood chips. You might need to get a load of wood chips. So just figuring out what you can do to support your soil, because when we have healthy soil, we will have healthy plants. So it's really important that you support your soil, give your soil the nutrition that it needs so that you can have a thriving garden. Another soil prep is weeding. This is something that's really important and it's ongoing throughout the garden season, but just making sure that you're getting rid of those weeds before you plant, it will make planting go a lot more easy. And the last tip I have for you today is make your plans for planting. Now I know we kind of already did this in our garden planting video, which I'll link in the description box below, but I think it's always good to do just kind of one last evaluation out in your garden space. So actually go out there, look at your garden spaces, make sure that the plan that you made on paper kind of lines up with what you're actually going to do. And then from there, you can make a list of plants that you may need to buy. Maybe you started some from seed indoors that didn't really do very well. So you need to make a list of the plants you need to buy and kind of also just reevaluate where you're putting everything. So that way, when it comes time to actually plant, it will just go so much more smoothly for you. And again, always check your last frost date to make sure that you're planting after that date. You can plant before, but you may have to cover your plants at night so that you don't lose them to the frost. So just keep that in mind. Always check that frost date to make sure that you're kind of safe and out of the way of it. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I would love to hear what you guys do to prep your garden for the planting season. Leave those comments in the comment section below. Please hit the subscribe button and also head over to morningshores.com where you'll find more information on gardening, homesteading, and sustainable living. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one.